Millionaire CEO rescues freezing twin girls at dawn. They reveal a secret that broke his heart. The blizzard raged mercilessly through the Colorado mountains, turning the world into a frozen wasteland of death. Most people were safely indoors, but not everyone had that luxury. In the darkness, two small figures lay motionless in the snow, their tiny bodies barely visible against the white canvas of winter's fury. Time was running out, and hope seemed as frozen as the landscape around them. But no one could have imagined what would come next. The headlights of Nathaniel Brooks' black Tesla cut through the swirling snow like swords through silk. At 38, he was one of Colorado's youngest billionaires, having built his tech empire from nothing after losing his family 7 years ago. Tonight, he was driving back from a board meeting in Denver, his mind heavy with the usual burden of success that felt more like a prison than a blessing. The storm had worsened dramatically in the past hour. Even with the car's advanced all-wheel drive, Nathaniel found himself crawling along the mountain highway at barely 20 miles per hour. The radio crackled with weather warnings and road closure announcements, but he pressed on. His empty mansion in Aspen waited for him, cold, silent, and as lonely as every other night for the past 7 years. A flash of color caught his peripheral vision, something that didn't belong in this monochrome world of white and gray. He slammed on the brakes, the Tesla sliding slightly before the electronic systems regained control. Through the passenger window, barely visible in the swirling snow, he saw what looked like a small red coat. "What the hell?" Nathaniel muttered, his breath fogging in the suddenly cold air as he rolled down the window. The wind howled like a living thing, carrying ice crystals that stung his face. But there was no mistaking what he saw. Two small forms huddled together against a fallen tree, maybe 50 yards from the road. Without hesitation, he threw the car into park and activated the hazard lights. The emergency kit in his trunk included thermal blankets and a powerful flashlight. As he trudged through the knee-deep snow, his expensive Italian shoes becoming worthless ice blocks, his heart pounded with a fear he hadn't felt since that terrible night 7 years ago. The beam of his flashlight revealed a sight that stopped him cold. Two identical little girls, no more than 7 years old, were curled together like sleeping angels. Their lips were blue, their dark hair matted with ice, and their tiny bodies shook with violent tremors even in unconsciousness. They wore nothing but thin summer clothes, a red dress on one, a blue dress on the other, completely inadequate for survival in this deadly cold. Hey, can you hear me?" Nathaniel dropped to his knees beside them, his voice barely audible. Over the howling wind, the first girl, the one in red, stirred slightly when he touched her shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing the most beautiful hazel eyes he'd ever seen, filled with terror and confusion. "Please," she whispered, her voice so faint he had to lean close to hear. "Don't hurt us, we'll be good. We promise we'll be good." The words hit him like a physical blow. These weren't just lost children, they were running from something. Or someone. The way they instinctively cowered when he reached for them told a story no child should ever have to live. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly, wrapping the first thermal blanket around them both. "My name is Nathaniel. I'm going to take you somewhere warm and safe, okay?" The second girl opened her eyes then, identical to her sister's, except for a small scar above her left eyebrow. She looked at Nathaniel with an expression far too old for her young face. The look of someone who had learned not to trust, not to hope, not to believe in rescue. "Are you an angel?" she whispered. The question broke something inside Nathaniel's chest. "No, sweetheart. I'm just a man who found you. But I promise, I swear to you, nothing bad is going to happen to you anymore." As he lifted them both in his arms, their small bodies frighteningly light, he felt something shift inside him. For the first time in 7 years, he had a purpose beyond just surviving each day. These two little girls needed him, and he was going to move heaven and earth to save them. The drive to his mansion took 45 minutes that felt like hours. The girls drifted in and out of consciousness, occasionally mumbling words that made his blood run cold. "Sorry, please don't, we didn't mean to." By the time his gates came into view, Nathaniel had already called his personal physician, Dr. Sarah Martinez, and the best pediatric trauma specialist in Colorado. But as he carried them through his front door, he had no idea that finding these two angels in the snow would lead him down a path that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his own past. Dr. Sarah Martinez arrived within 20 minutes, her emergency medical bag in hand, and her face grim with concern. She was a woman in her 50s who had seen everything in her 30 years of practice. But even she paused when she saw the two small forms lying on Nathaniel's leather couch, wrapped in heated blankets. "How long were they out there?" she asked, immediately beginning her examination. "I don't know, maybe hours. Their body temperatures are dangerously low." Nathaniel paced behind her, unable to stand still. "They were conscious when I found them, but barely." Dr. Martinez worked with practiced efficiency, checking vital signs, examining their extremities for frostbite, and setting up an IV line to address dehydration and hypothermia. The girls remained mostly unconscious throughout the examination, stirring only when she touched particularly sensitive areas. "They're severely hypothermic, but we caught them in time," she said finally. "No major frostbite, though their fingers and toes will be painful for a few days. What worries me more are these old injuries." "What kind of injuries?" Nathaniel's voice turned sharp. "Healed fractures in both wrists, malnutrition, and..." She hesitated, glancing at the sleeping children. "Signs of long-term neglect and possible abuse. These children have been through hell, Nathaniel." The words hit him like physical blows. He looked down at the two innocent faces, now peaceful in sleep, and felt a rage building inside him that he hadn't experienced since losing his own family. Who could hurt children like this? What kind of monster abandons 7-year-old girls in a blizzard? "We need to call social services," Dr. Martinez continued, "and the police. These children were obviously not..." The word came out harder than Nathaniel intended. "Not yet." Dr. Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Nathaniel, I understand you want to help, but there are protocols." 24 hours, he said firmly. "Give me 24 hours to make sure they're stable and safe, then we'll figure out the next steps." She studied his face for a long moment. Sarah had known Nathaniel since before his tragedy, had watched him retreat from the world after losing his wife and daughter. This was the first time in years she'd seen real emotion in his eyes beyond grief and emptiness. 24 hours, she agreed, "but I'm staying here tonight to monitor them. And Nathaniel, these girls are going to need more than medical attention. They're going to need patience, understanding, and probably professional trauma counseling." As if summoned by their conversation, the girl in the red dress, the one who had spoken first, began to stir. Her eyes opened slowly, taking in the warm, well-lit room with confusion and fear. Where are we?" she whispered. Nathaniel immediately knelt beside the couch. "You're safe. You're in my home. Do you remember me? I found you in the snow." She nodded slowly, then looked around frantically. "Emma, where's Emma?" "Right here," he said gently, gesturing to her sister, who was sleeping peacefully beside her. "She's fine. You're both fine." The relief that washed over the little girl's face was heartbreaking. She reached out with a trembling hand to touch her sister's arm, as if confirming she was real. "What's your name?" Nathaniel asked softly. "Emily," she whispered. "Emily Rose. And that's Emma Grace. We're twins." "Emily Rose and Emma Grace," he repeated, testing the names. They felt familiar somehow, though he couldn't place why. "Those are beautiful names. Can you tell me how you ended up in the snow, Emily?" The little girl's face immediately closed off, fear replacing the tentative trust that had been building. "We can't tell," she whispered. "They said if we tell anyone, they'll hurt Emma. They'll hurt both of us." "Who said that, sweetheart?" But Emily just shook her head violently, tears beginning to stream down her cheeks. "We can't tell. We can't." Dr. Martinez caught Nathaniel's eye and shook her head slightly. "Too much, too soon." These children had been conditioned to fear, to keep secrets that could get them killed. "Okay," Nathaniel said gently. "You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to. Right now, all that matters is that you're warm and safe. Are you hungry?" Emily nodded hesitantly. "We haven't eaten in a really long time." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. "Well, let's fix that right now." The kitchen of Nathaniel's mansion was designed for entertaining dozens of guests, but tonight it felt intimate as he prepared simple chicken soup and grilled cheese sandwiches for two frightened little girls. Emily sat at the breakfast bar, wrapped in one of his sweaters that dwarfed her tiny frame, watching his every move with careful attention. Emma had awakened an hour ago, but hadn't spoken a single word. She stayed close to her sister, communicating only through glances and subtle touches. Dr. Martinez had explained that selective mutism was common in severely traumatized children, a protective mechanism when words had become dangerous. "I'm not much of a cook," Nathaniel admitted as he flipped the sandwiches. My housekeeper usually handles meals, but she's visiting her family in Mexico this week. You have a housekeeper? Emily asked, her eyes wide. Are you rich? The innocent question made him pause. These children had clearly lived in poverty, possibly on the streets. His wealth would be incomprehensible to them. I have enough money, he said carefully. Enough to make sure you and Emma have everything you need. Emily watched him serve the food, her expression thoughtful. Most rich people don't help kids like us. They pretend they don't see us. The casual way she said it, as if homelessness and abandonment were normal parts of childhood, broke his heart. Well, I'm not most people. As the girls ate slowly at first, then with increasing hunger, Nathaniel found himself studying their faces. There was something hauntingly familiar about them, especially their eyes. Those hazel eyes that seemed to hold depths of sadness no child should carry. Emily, he said gently, can you tell me how old you are? 7, she replied between bites. We both are. We're exactly the same age. When's your birthday? Emily's face brightened for the first time. March 15th. Emma and I were born at the same time. She came first, though, by 3 minutes. She's technically my big sister. March 15th. The date hit Nathaniel like a lightning bolt. His daughter Sarah would have been 7 years old now. She would have been born on March 15th, if she had lived. The coincidence was too strange, too perfect. That's a very special day, he managed, his voice thick with emotion. Dr. Martinez, who had been quietly observing from the living room, caught the change in his tone and moved closer. Mr. Nathaniel, Emily's voice was small. Are you okay? You look sad. He forced a smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking about something. But as he looked at these two girls, really looked at them, he began to notice other things. The shape of their noses, the way Emily tilted her head when she was thinking, Emma's habit of tucking her hair behind her left ear, small gestures and features that seemed achingly familiar. Emily, do you remember your parents? Your real parents? The little girl's face immediately shuttered again. We don't have parents. We never had parents. It's just been me and Emma, always. But something in her eyes suggested otherwise. There was a flicker of memory, quickly suppressed, that told him she was either lying or had been taught to lie. Sometimes people forget things when bad things happen, he said gently. It's okay if you don't remember everything right now. Emma suddenly reached across the table and took her sister's hand. For the first time since awakening, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. The nice lady. Remember the nice lady who used to sing to us? Emily's eyes widened in panic. Emma, no, we're not supposed to. What nice lady? Nathaniel asked, keeping his voice calm despite his racing heart, but Emily was shaking her head violently. We don't remember anything. There was no lady. Emma just gets confused sometimes. The fear in her voice was real and immediate. These children had been threatened, conditioned to forget their past or face consequences. But Emma's slip suggested that somewhere in their traumatized minds, there were memories waiting to surface. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. Girls, it's getting late. You need rest to get better. Mr. Brooks has prepared a warm room for you upstairs. As Nathaniel led them to the guest bedroom he'd hastily prepared, he couldn't shake the feeling that these weren't just random children he'd rescued from the storm. The coincidences were too many, too specific. The birthday, the familiar features, the way Emma had said the nice lady who used to sing. His wife Rachel had sung lullabies to their daughter Sarah every night before bed, but that was impossible. Sarah had died in the car accident 7 years ago, along with Rachel. He'd seen the hospital reports, the death certificates. His family was gone forever, wasn't it? Nathaniel couldn't sleep. He sat in his home office, staring at a photograph on his desk, the last picture ever taken of his family. Rachel's radiant smile as she held their tiny daughter Sarah, just 2 months old at the time. The baby's eyes were barely open, but they were unmistakably hazel, the same shade he'd been staring into all evening. The coincidences were driving him crazy. He'd pulled out every photo album, every video, searching for something that would either confirm or deny the impossible thought growing in his mind. Sarah would be 7 now, exactly the age of the twins. She would have been born on March 15th. And Rachel used to sing. God, Rachel sang constantly. You're losing your mind, he muttered to himself. Grief doesn't work that way. Dead babies don't come back as twin 7-year-olds, but doubt, once planted, grew like a cancer. He found himself, at his computer, pulling up files he hadn't looked at in years. The accident report from 7 years ago, the hospital records, Rachel's death certificate, and Sarah's. He stared at the document, reading it for the 100th time. Infant deceased due to injuries sustained in motor vehicle accident. Body released to family for burial. He'd been in a coma for 3 weeks after the crash. When he woke up, his brother Michael had handled all the arrangements. The funerals had been closed casket due to the severity of the accident. Nathaniel had been too destroyed by grief to question anything, to demand to see them one more time. A soft knock at his office door interrupted his spiraling thoughts. Dr. Martinez stood in the doorway, still in her scrubs, looking concerned. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Sarah, these girls. There's something I need to tell you, I know." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I've been thinking the same thing. The resemblance is uncanny. Nathaniel, especially Emily. She has your jawline and those eyes. You think I'm crazy. I think you're a father who lost his child and is seeing what he wants to see." She paused. "But I also think there's more to this story than 2 random children getting lost in a blizzard." Before Nathaniel could respond, a small voice called from upstairs. Mr. Nathaniel, please." They rushed upstairs to find Emily standing in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. "It's Emma. Something's wrong with Emma." In the guest bedroom, Emma was sitting up in bed, her eyes open but staring at nothing. Her body was rigid, and she was making small, distressed sounds in the back of her throat. "It's a night terror," Dr. Martinez said, immediately moving to the bed. "Very common in traumatized children. Emma, sweetheart, you're safe. You're in a safe place." But Emma didn't respond. She was somewhere else entirely, lost in whatever nightmare was playing behind her vacant eyes. "What does she see?" Emily whispered, climbing onto the bed to hold her sister's hand. "She gets like this sometimes. She goes away and I can't bring her back. Sometimes our minds try to protect us from bad memories by hiding them away," Dr. Martinez explained gently. "But sometimes they come back in dreams." Emily began to sing, her pure 7-year-old voice filling the room with a melody that made Nathaniel's blood freeze. "Hush now, my baby. Be still, love. Don't cry. Sleep as you're rocked by the stream. Hush now, my baby. The moon's in the sky. Rest now, my baby, and dream." It was Rachel's lullaby, the one she'd sung to Sarah every single night, the one she'd hummed during her pregnancy, the one he'd never heard anywhere else because she'd made it up herself. Emily continued singing, and slowly, Emma's rigid posture began to relax. Her vacant stare focused, and she turned toward her sister's voice like a flower turning toward the sun. "The nice lady," Emma whispered when the song ended. "She used to sing that song before the bad men took us away from her." "Emma, don't." Emily's panic returned immediately. "We're not supposed to remember." But the dam had broken. Emma's eyes found Nathaniel's across the room, and when she spoke, her voice carried a certainty that shattered his world. "She called me her little angel. She called Emily her sunshine. And she smelled like flowers and coffee. And she had long hair like chocolate. And she loved us so much." Emma's voice broke. "Why did the bad men take us away from her? Why couldn't we go home?" Dr. Martinez gripped Nathaniel's arm, feeling him sway. The description of Rachel was perfect, down to her morning routine of coffee and the lavender perfume she wore every day. "What happened to the nice lady?" Nathaniel asked, his voice barely audible. "She went to sleep," Emma said simply. "After the loud crash and all the blood. She went to sleep and wouldn't wake up, no matter how much we cried." The room spun around. Nathaniel, 7 years ago, he'd been told his daughter died in that accident. But what if she hadn't? What if someone had taken them, while he lay unconscious in the hospital? "Who were the bad men?" he whispered. But Emily was pulling Emma down under the covers, fear overriding everything else. "We can't talk about them. They'll find us. They always find us." As Dr. Martinez helped calm the children back to sleep, Nathaniel's mind raced with impossible possibilities. If these were his daughters, if Sarah had somehow survived and been taken, if there had been another baby he never knew about, then someone had stolen 7 years of his life. Someone had let him grieve and suffer while his children lived in hell, and he was going to find out who. By dawn, Nathaniel had made a decision that would change everything. While Dr. Martinez watched over the sleeping twins, he drove to the Denver office of the private investigation firm he used for corporate security. Marcus Chen, his head investigator, was surprised to see him so early, especially looking like he hadn't slept in days. "I need you to reopen an investigation," Nathaniel said without preamble, sliding a file across Marcus's desk. "My family's car accident 7 years ago." Marcus frowned. "Nathaniel, we investigated that thoroughly. It was tragic, but it was an accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. I need you to investigate what happened at the hospital after the crash. I need to know exactly who handled my daughter's body. I need records, security footage if it still exists, witness statements from every person who was in that pediatric ICU. Why?" Marcus's voice was careful. "What's brought this on?" Nathaniel told him about finding the twins, about the lullaby, about Emma's impossible knowledge of Rachel's details. Marcus listened without interruption, his expression growing more serious with each revelation. "You think these children are connected to your family somehow?" "I think my daughter didn't die in that accident. I think someone took her while I was unconscious and let me believe she was dead." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "That's a serious accusation. It would mean massive fraud, kidnapping, conspiracy. Do you have any evidence beyond the resemblance and some recovered memories from traumatized children?" "Not yet. That's why I need you, okay? But Nathaniel, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that this is just your grief playing tricks on you. These children might simply remind you of what you lost. Then prove me wrong, but do it fast. Because if I'm right, there are people out there who destroyed my life and tortured my children for 7 years, and I want them found." Back at the mansion, Dr. Martinez had more disturbing news. "I've examined them more thoroughly this morning. Emily has evidence of a badly healed broken arm, probably from when she was around 4 or 5. Emma has scars on her back that look like burn marks, and both girls show signs of chronic malnutrition." "How long?" Nathaniel's voice was deadly quiet. "Years. This wasn't a recent situation, Nathaniel. These children have been suffering for a very long time." They were interrupted by soft footsteps on the stairs. Emily appeared, wearing one of the new pajama sets Nathaniel had ordered for emergency delivery that morning. She looked around the kitchen nervously. "Where's Emma?" "Still sleeping," Dr. Martinez said gently. "She needs rest." "How are you feeling this morning, sweetheart?" "Scared," Emily admitted. "Are you going to send us away? To one of those places with lots of kids and mean ladies?" Nathaniel knelt down to her level. "Emily, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You and Emma are safe here. No one is going to send you anywhere you don't want to go. Do you understand?" She studied his face with those heartbreakingly familiar eyes. "You promise?" "I promise. Even if we tell you about the bad men." The question hit him like a physical blow. "Especially if you tell me about the bad men." "Emily, no one will ever hurt you again. Not while I'm alive." She seemed to be weighing his words, testing them for truth, the way children who have been lied to learn to do. Finally, she climbed onto one of the kitchen stools. "There were lots of bad men," she said quietly. "But the worst one was Uncle Mike." Dr. Martinez and Nathaniel exchanged glances. "Uncle Mike wasn't really your uncle, was he?" she asked gently. "No, but that's what he made us call him. He said if we ever told anyone his real name, he would hurt Emma, and I couldn't let him hurt Emma." Nathaniel's heart was pounding. What did Uncle Mike look like? "Emily, tall with brown hair, and he had a scar right here." She traced a line on her temple. "From when he was in the army," he said, "and he always smelled like those white sticks that make smoke." The description was vague enough to fit thousands of men, but something about it nagged at Nathaniel. Where had he seen a scar like that recently? "Did Uncle Mike ever talk about why he took you? About your parents?" Emily's face crumpled. "He said our mummy and daddy didn't want us anymore. He said they were glad we were gone. But that wasn't true, was it? The nice lady loved us. She loved us so much." "Yes," Nathaniel said, his voice breaking. "The nice lady loved you more than anything in the world. Do you think she's still sleeping? Or do you think she went to heaven, like the nice man at the church told us?" Before Nathaniel could answer, Emma appeared at the top of the stairs. But something was wrong. She was walking strangely, one hand braced against the wall for support. "Emily," she called, her voice strained. "I can't. Something's wrong with my legs." Dr. Martinez was up the stairs in seconds, catching Emma as she stumbled. "What do you mean, sweetheart? What's wrong?" "They feel funny, like they're not really there." Emma's voice was frightened. "I can't make them work right." As Dr. Martinez helped Emma back to bed for examination, Emily grabbed Nathaniel's arm. This happens sometimes, she whispered urgently. When she remembers too much about the bad men, her legs stop working. The doctors said it's all in her head, but I know it's real. Nathaniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. What did the bad men do to Emma's legs? Emily's eyes filled with tears. Uncle Mike got really mad one time when we tried to run away. He said if we couldn't be trusted to stay, then maybe we didn't need legs that worked. He hurt her. Really bad. And ever since then, when she gets scared or remembers things, her legs just stop working. The pieces were coming together in Nathaniel's mind, painting a picture of systematic abuse and psychological torture that made him want to tear the world apart with his bare hands. But one piece still didn't fit. Emily, you keep calling him Uncle Mike. Did he ever tell you his last name? She hesitated, then whispered, Brooks. His name was Michael Brooks. He said he was our daddy's brother, but he lied about everything else, so probably he lied about that too. The name hit Nathaniel like a physical blow. Michael Brooks, his own brother, the one who had handled the funeral arrangements while Nathaniel was in a coma, the one who had cremated his wife and daughter before he could say goodbye, the one who had a scar on his temple from his army service, the one who had been struggling financially for years and had often made bitter comments about Nathaniel's wealth. As the horrible truth crashed over him, Nathaniel realized that his worst nightmare wasn't that strangers had stolen his children. It was that his own brother had betrayed him in the most unthinkable way possible. The confrontation happened that afternoon. Nathaniel called Michael and asked him to come to the mansion immediately, claiming there was a family emergency. His brother arrived within an hour, still wearing his construction company uniform, the familiar scar on his temple clearly visible in the afternoon light. Dr. Martinez had taken the twins upstairs to keep them safe and calm. Marcus Chen was positioned in the home office with recording equipment, ready to document whatever confession might come. Nathaniel waited in the living room, every muscle in his body coiled with barely contained rage. Jesus, Nate, you look like hell, Michael said as he entered, accepting the buyer his brother offered. What's this emergency? Please tell me you're not having another breakdown about Rachel and Sarah. The casual mention of their names, the fake concern in Michael's voice, made Nathaniel's jaw clench, but he forced himself to remain calm. He needed the truth. Actually, that's exactly what this is about, he said carefully. I've been thinking about the accident, about the funeral arrangements you made while I was unconscious. Michael's expression didn't change, but Nathaniel caught the slight tightening around his eyes. What about them? I did what needed to be done. You were in no condition to handle anything. I know, and I never thanked you properly for that. Nathaniel took a sip of his own beer, watching his brother's face. It must have been hard, identifying the bodies, especially Sarah. She was so small. Michael's voice was flat. Real hard. I was just wondering, did you actually see her, Sarah's body? Or did the hospital just tell you she was dead? Now Michael definitely tensed. What kind of question is that? Of course I saw her. I had to identify her for the death certificate. Right. Of course. Nathaniel nodded as if this made perfect sense. And the closed casket funeral, that was your decision. The accident was bad, Nate. You wouldn't have wanted to see them that way. I was protecting you, protecting me. Nathaniel repeated the words like he was tasting them. The way you protected them. Michael froze, the beer halfway to his lips. What? I found them, Mike. I found Emily and Emma. The color drained from his brother's face. For a moment, the mask slipped completely, and Nathaniel saw the truth in his eyes. Guilt, fear, and something that might have been relief. I don't know what you're talking about, Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't you? Nathaniel stood up slowly. Emily and Emma Brooks, 7 years old, born on March 15th. Ring any bells? Michael set down his beer with shaking hands. Nate, listen to me. No, you listen to me. Nathaniel's voice was deadly quiet. My daughter didn't die in that accident, did she? You took her. You took her and you took her sister, a sister I never even knew existed, and you let me grieve for 7 years while you sold them to traffickers. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. The words exploded out of Michael, 7 years of guilt finally breaking through. I needed the money, okay? I was going to lose everything. My house, my business, my kids' college funds, and you had everything. He had millions. So you took my child. She was dying anyway. Michael was on his feet now, pacing like a caged animal. The doctors said she probably wouldn't make it. brain injuries, internal bleeding, and Rachel was already gone. I thought if you could just, what? Sell my dying daughter. Not sell. I found people who could help her. Private medical care, experimental treatments. They said they could save her. What people? Michael's face crumpled. I don't know their real names. They contacted me after the accident, said they'd heard about the case. They offered to take Sarah, get her the best medical care money could buy. All I had to do was falsify the death certificate, and the money. How much did they pay you? 200,000. But it wasn't about the money. They said they'd save her. And Emma. Where does Emma fit into this? Michael looked genuinely confused. Who's Emma? The other little girl. You bastard. Sarah's twin sister. There was no twin sister. Rachel only had one baby. But even as he said it, doubt crept into Michael's voice. Nathaniel realized with growing horror that his brother might not have known about Emma at all. Mike, what exactly did these people tell you about Sarah's condition? That she had severe brain trauma but might recover with the right treatment. They said they specialized in cases like hers, children who fell through the cracks of the regular medical system. And you believed them. I wanted to believe them. Do you think this was easy for me, watching you suffer, knowing what I'd done? I convinced myself that someday she'd come back healthy and whole, and you'd forgive me because I'd saved her life. The delusion in his brother's voice was heartbreaking. Michael had convinced himself he was a hero, not a kidnapper. But something still didn't add up. If there was only one baby, where did Emma come from? I don't know. Maybe they already had another kid. Maybe they needed a companion for Sarah. These people, they had resources, connections. They could do things normal people couldn't. A horrible new possibility occurred to Nathaniel. What if Rachel was pregnant with twins and didn't know? What if Emma was born after the accident, while Rachel was dying in the hospital? Michael's face went white. That's impossible. The doctors would have told us, would they? If someone with enough money and influence wanted to cover it up, if they needed 2 children instead of 1. Nathaniel's voice was getting louder. How do you think they knew about the accident so quickly? Mike, how did they know to contact you within hours of the crash? I don't know. I thought they monitored police scanners or something. They were already watching us. They wanted our children, and when the accident gave them an opportunity, they used you to get them. The truth was sinking in, and Michael looked like he was going to be sick. Oh God, what did I do? I thought I was saving her. I thought you thought wrong. Nathaniel's voice was ice cold. You sold my daughters to child traffickers and let me believe they were dead for 7 years. Where are they now? Are they okay? Before Nathaniel could answer, a small voice came from the stairway. Uncle Mike. Both men turned to see Emily standing there, her face pale with terror. She must have heard their voices and come down despite Dr. Martinez's instructions to stay upstairs. Michael stared at her in shock, recognition dawning in his eyes. Sarah, oh my God, you're so big. My name is Emily, she said quietly. And you're a liar. You said our daddy didn't want us, but he's been looking for us, hasn't he? He's been sad because he thought we were dead. Michael dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought they would help you. I thought they would make you better. They hurt us, Emily said simply. Every day for 7 years, they hurt us. And when we tried to run away, they hurt Emma so bad she can't walk anymore. The words hit Michael like physical blows. He looked up at Nathaniel with devastation in his eyes. I'll do anything to make this right. Just tell me how. You're going to give Marcus every detail about these people. Names, locations, how to contact them, everything. And then, Nathaniel's voice was deadly quiet. And then you're going to pray that Emma walks again. Because if she doesn't, if my daughter spends the rest of her life in a wheelchair because of what you did, then being arrested will be the least of your problems. As Marcus emerged from the office to take Michael's statement, and Dr. Martinez came downstairs with Emma in her arms, Nathaniel realized that finding his daughters was only the beginning. The people who had taken them, who had turned them into Emily and Emma instead of Sarah and her sister, were still out there, and he was going to find every single one of them. Like this video if you're as shocked as we are. Comment what you think Nathaniel should do to the people who took his daughters. Marcus Chen worked through the night, extracting every detail from Michael's confession. The trafficking organization was more sophisticated than anyone had imagined, a network spanning multiple states, specializing in children who wouldn't be missed. children from broken homes, runaways, and in Sarah's case, children presumed dead. They called themselves the Haven, Michael told Marcus, his voice hollow with shame. They said they provided homes for special children who needed specialized care. I thought it was legitimate. How did they contact you? Marcus pressed. A woman named Dr. Victoria Sterling. She showed up at the hospital the day after the accident, said she'd heard about Sarah's case. She had credentials, medical degrees. On the wall of her office, she seemed so professional, so caring. Nathaniel listened from the adjoining room, his hands clenched into fists. Every detail felt like another nail in his brother's coffin, but he needed the information to find the people who had tortured his daughters. Where was this office? Downtown Denver, high-rise building on 16th Street. But when I tried to go back there a year later, it was empty, like they'd never existed. Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway. Nathaniel, you need to come upstairs. It's Emma. He found Emma sitting on the edge of the bed, her legs dangling uselessly. She was staring at her feet with intense concentration, willing them to move. I remember more things, she said quietly when she saw him, about the place where they kept us. It was big and white, with lots of rooms full of kids, and there was a lady with yellow hair who was nice to us sometimes. Can you tell me about this lady? She would sneak us extra food when the mean ones weren't looking, and she told us stories about princesses who got rescued by their daddies. Emma's voice broke. She said someday our real daddy would find us and take us home. What was her name? Miss Jenny. But she disappeared one day, and we never saw her again. Emily cried for 3 days. Nathaniel sat beside her on the bed. Emma, I know this is hard, but anything you can remember might help us find the other children who are still there. There were so many, she whispered. Little ones who cried for their mummies, big ones who were angry all the time, and some who just stared at nothing, like their brains went to sleep. The picture she painted was of a systematic operation, processing dozens of children. Nathaniel realized with growing horror that his daughters weren't the only victims. Emma, do you remember how you and Emily escaped? Her face darkened. There was a fire, a big one. Everyone was running and screaming. Emily grabbed my hand and we ran into the woods. We walked for days and days until we couldn't walk anymore. How long ago was this? Before the snow, when the leaves were pretty colors. We've been hiding ever since. That meant they'd been on their own for months. 2 7-year-old girls, surviving in the wilderness. The fact that they'd made it this long was a miracle. Emma, I need to ask you something important. Do you remember anything about when you were a baby? About your mummy? Her eyes grew distant. I remember a song, and soft hands, and feeling safe. She looked up at him with heartbreaking hope. Is she really gone forever? Yes, sweetheart. But she loved you so much, both of you. And now I'm going to love you and take care of you. Even if my legs don't work, especially if your legs don't work, nothing will ever change how much I love you. For the first time since he'd found them, Emma smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real. Downstairs, Marcus had finished with Michael and was preparing to coordinate with federal authorities. The FBI would take over the investigation, but Nathaniel wasn't content to sit back and wait. I want to hire our own team, he told Marcus. Money is no object. I want every resource, every contact, every favor you've ever accumulated. Find these people. Nathaniel, let the FBI handle this. They have jurisdiction, resources, they have bureaucracy, and procedures. I have something better. His voice was deadly calm. I have unlimited funds and nothing left to lose. My daughters have suffered for 7 years. I won't let them suffer one more day while we wait for government paperwork. Marcus nodded grimly. He'd worked for Nathaniel long enough to recognize that tone. What do you want me to do? Start with Dr. Victoria Sterling. That name has to exist somewhere. Medical licenses, university records, something. Then find this Haven facility. If it burned down, there will be insurance records, fire department reports, and the other children. We find them all, every single one. 3 days later, Marcus had his first breakthrough. Dr. Victoria Sterling was real, but her credentials were stolen. The real Dr. Sterling had died in a car accident 12 years ago. Someone had been using her identity ever since. The medical license was maintained through forged continuing education credits. Marcus explained over the phone. But here's the interesting part. The payments came from a shell company called Haven Medical Services. Where's that registered? Nevada. But it's just a front. However, I traced the financial records back through 6 different shell companies to a private foundation called the Children's Future Fund. Nathaniel was in his home office, watching through the window as Emily and Emma played in the garden. Emma was in a wheelchair now, but she seemed happier than she'd been since arriving. Dr. Martinez had confirmed that her paralysis was psychological, not physical. With proper therapy and time, she might walk again. Who runs this foundation? That's where it gets interesting. The board of directors includes some very prominent names: Senator Patricia Hawthorne from Texas, Judge Robert Chen from the Colorado Supreme Court, Dr. Margaret Westfield, who runs the largest private pediatric hospital in the region. The names hit Nathaniel like a sledgehammer. These weren't random criminals, they were pillars of the community. People with the power and influence to make children disappear without a trace. Marcus, I need you to be very careful with this information. If these people have that kind of reach, I know. I've already secured copies of everything in multiple locations. But Nathaniel, this goes deeper than we thought. I found records of charitable donations, government contracts for children's services. This organization has been operating for at least 15 years. How many children? Based on the financial records, hundreds, maybe thousands. The number was staggering. Nathaniel closed his eyes, thinking of all the parents who had grieved lost children, never knowing their babies had been stolen and sold. There's something else, Marcus continued. I found a property record, a large estate in rural Montana, purchased by the Children's Future Fund 8 years ago. It's listed as a therapeutic boarding facility for special needs children. That's where they are, maybe, but Nathaniel, this place is isolated. Private security, restricted airspace. If we're wrong about this, we're not wrong. He was already standing, his mind racing with plans. How soon can he get me satellite images of this facility? Give me an hour. Nathaniel hung up and went outside to where his daughters were playing. Emily was pushing Emma's wheelchair around the garden, both girls laughing as they chased butterflies. The sound of their laughter was the most beautiful thing he'd heard in 7 years. Girls, can you come here for a minute? They wheeled over, Emily immediately sensing the seriousness in his tone. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But I need to ask you something. Do you remember anything about where you lived before the fire? Was it in the mountains, near water? Emma and Emily exchanged glances. It was cold, Emma said slowly. Really cold. And there were big mountains all around. And sometimes we could see animals, big brown ones, with horns. Elk, Emily added. Miss Jenny told us they were called Elk, Montana. It fit perfectly. Girls, I think I've found where you came from, where the other children are. Emily's face immediately filled with worry. Are you going to send us back there? No, sweetheart, never. But there are other kids there who need help. Kids like you used to be, the little ones who cry for their mummies, Emma whispered. Yes, and I think I can help them. But I need to know, if I go there, if I try to get them out, will you be okay here with Dr. Martinez? Emily thought for a long moment. Will you come back? I promise. Then we'll be brave. For the other kids. That night, Nathaniel called a meeting with his most trusted people. Marcus had assembled a team of former military personnel and security experts. Dr. Martinez would coordinate medical support for any rescued children. His lawyer would handle the legal ramifications. This isn't just a rescue operation, he told them. This is war. These people stole my children and sold them like livestock. They've been doing it for years, and they're going to keep doing it, unless we stop them. What's the plan? Asked Jake Morrison, a former Navy SEAL who now ran private security operations. We hit them hard and fast. Extract every child in that facility. Document everything for evidence. And we make sure every person involved in this organization never hurts another child. And if they resist, Nathaniel's smile was cold as winter. Then they'll discover exactly how dangerous a billionaire with unlimited resources can be when someone hurts his family. The satellite images revealed a compound that looked more like a prison than a children's facility. High walls, guard towers, and only one access road. But Marcus had found something even more valuable. The facility's employment records. They'd been recruiting staff through legitimate channels, which meant background checks and personnel files. I've identified 12 current employees, Marcus reported, including someone very interesting, Jennifer Walsh, hired as a caregiver 6 months ago. Miss Jenny, Nathaniel said immediately, has to be. And get this, She's been filing reports with Child Protective Services about conditions at the facility, reports that have been mysteriously buried or ignored. She's still trying to help them. It looks that way. I think we have an inside contact. Dr. Martinez looked up from the medical supplies she was organizing. If this Jenny has been protecting children inside, she might be able to help coordinate the rescue. How do we contact her without alerting security? Marcus smiled grimly. Leave that to me. 2 hours later, Jennifer Walsh's cell phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Emma and Emily are safe. The man who loves them wants to help the others. Are you still in? The response came back within minutes. Thank God. Yes. When's tone? How many children? 43. Ages 3 to 16. Some very sick. Some who haven't spoken in years. They need help desperately. Medical needs, malnutrition, untreated injuries, severe psychological trauma, and there are rumors they're planning to move the operation soon, maybe weeks. The timeline had just accelerated dramatically. If the facility was planning to relocate, it meant scattering the children again, making them impossible to find. We go tomorrow night, Nathaniel decided. Jake Morrison shook his head. That's not enough time for proper reconnaissance. We're going in blind. Then we adapt. But we're not leaving those children there another day. The next 18 hours were a blur of preparation. Jake assembled a team of 8 specialists. Dr. Martinez coordinated with a pediatric hospital in Billings to receive rescued children. Marcus worked with federal contacts to ensure legal immunity for the operation. Meanwhile, Nathaniel spent time with Emily and Emma, trying to prepare them for what might happen. I don't understand why you have to go, Emily said, clinging to his hand. Can't the police do it? Sometimes adults make things complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes you have to do what's right, even if it's dangerous. Emma looked up from her wheelchair. Will you tell the little ones that their daddies are looking for them too? I will. And will you find Miss Jenny? She saved us lots of times. I'll find her. That evening, as Nathaniel's team prepared to leave for Montana, he received an unexpected visitor. Michael sat in his driveway, looking haggard and desperate. I want to come with you, he said, when Nathaniel approached the car. Absolutely not. Those children are there because of me. I need to help fix this. You've done enough. Michael got out of the car, and Nathaniel saw that his brother had been crying. Nate, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to, but let me do this one thing right. Let me help save them. How? I know the facility layout. Victoria Sterling showed me photos when she was convincing me to give up Sarah. I know where the children's dormitories are, where the offices are, how the security is arranged. Nathaniel studied his brother's face. The offer was compelling, but trusting Michael again felt impossible. If you're lying, if this is some kind of setup, I'm not lying. I swear on my own children's lives, let me help them. Against his better judgment, Nathaniel nodded. You stay behind me at all times. You do exactly what Jake tells you. And Michael, if you do anything to endanger those children or my team, I'll kill you myself. As they loaded into the vehicles, Jennifer Walsh sent one final text. Security shift change at 2 a.m. Eastern dormitory has the youngest ones. They're scared of loud noises. Please be gentle. Asterisk. The convoy pulled out into the Montana night, racing toward a confrontation 7 years in the making. In a few hours, Nathaniel would either save 43 children and destroy a trafficking network, or he would die trying. But as he thought of Emma's smile and Emily's courage, he knew there was no choice. Some things were worth any risk. The Haven facility looked even more like a prison at night. Floodlights swept the perimeter, while guards patrolled with automatic weapons. This wasn't a children's home, it was a fortress built to keep people in and investigators out. Jake Morrison studied the compound through night vision binoculars. 8 guards visible, probably more inside. This is going to be messy. Remember, the children are the priority, Nathaniel said into his headset. We get them out first. Worry about evidence second. Copy that. Michael, you're sure about the layout? Michael nodded, his face pale but determined. Eastern building, 1st and 2nd floors. The oldest kids are in the basement level. That's where they keep the ones who try to escape. At exactly 2 a.m., Jennifer Walsh triggered the facility's fire alarm system. The piercing wail cut through the night as emergency lights bathed the compound in red. According to plan, she would evacuate the youngest children to the eastern courtyard, away from the main security response. Jake's team moved like ghosts through the darkness. Years of military training allowed them to bypass the outer perimeter without alerting the guards, who were focused on the apparent emergency inside. Nathaniel reached the eastern courtyard first and saw something that nearly broke his heart. Jennifer Walsh stood in the center of a group of terrified children, some as young as 3 years old, all wearing identical gray pajamas like prisoners. They clung to her desperately, their eyes wide with fear. "Miss Jenny," he called softly. She turned, tears streaming down her face when she saw him. "You came. You actually came." "Of course I came," Emily and Emma said. "You saved them. Are they really safe? Really okay? They're home. They're loved. And now it's time to get these children home to..." The youngest children were loaded onto the transport vehicles first. Many were so malnourished they could barely walk. Others showed signs of untreated medical conditions that should have been addressed years ago. But the real horror was in their eyes, the hollow, hopeless stare of children who had given up believing in rescue. "The older ones are downstairs," Jennifer whispered urgently. "But be careful. Some of them have been here so long they're afraid to leave. They think this is another test." Michael led them to the basement entrance, his hands shaking as he recognized the hallway he'd seen in photos years ago. Down here, the security door code is 1847. The basement was a nightmare of concrete cells, each containing 2 or 3 children. The smell of fear and desperation hung in the air like a physical presence. "We're here to help," Nathaniel called out as they opened the first cell. "We're taking you somewhere safe." A boy who couldn't have been more than 10 years old backed against the wall. "This is a trick. They always do tricks. If we go with you, they'll hurt us worse." "No tricks," Nathaniel said gently, kneeling down to the boy's level. "Look at me. Really look at me. Do I look like one of them?" The boy studied his face for a long moment. "You look different, sad, like my daddy used to look. I am somebody's daddy, and I'm here to take you back to your daddy." "My daddy doesn't want me anymore. Dr. Sterling said so." "Dr. Sterling lied. Your daddy has been looking for you every single day since you disappeared." One by one, the children began to trust. Jake's team worked efficiently, carrying those too weak to walk, comforting those too traumatized to understand what was happening. But their rescue operation was interrupted by the sound of gunfire from upstairs. "We've got company," Jake's voice crackled over the radio. "Security response faster than expected. We need to move now." As they evacuated the last children from the basement, Nathaniel heard a familiar voice echoing down the hallway. "Mr. Brooks, how delightful to see you again." He turned to see a woman in an expensive suit walking toward them, flanked by armed guards. She was older now, her blonde hair touched with silver, but he recognized her from Michael's description. Dr. Victoria Sterling. "I have to admit, I'm impressed," she continued conversationally, as if they were meeting at a cocktail party instead of a child trafficking facility. "Most parents give up after a year or two. 7 years of searching shows remarkable persistence. Where are the records?" Nathaniel demanded. "The files on all these children. Destroyed, I'm afraid. We're very careful about security. But don't worry, we'll be relocating these children to new facilities by morning. Your little rescue attempt has merely accelerated our timeline. These children aren't going anywhere with you." Dr. Sterling smiled coldly. "Mr. Brooks, you seem to misunderstand the situation. We have very powerful friends. Judges, senators, police commissioners. By tomorrow, you'll be arrested for kidnapping, and these children will be back in our care. Maybe, but you won't be alive to see it." The gunshot came from behind Nathaniel. Michael stood there, smoking pistol in his hand, his face a mask of 7 years' worth of guilt and rage. "That's for Sarah," he said quietly as Dr. Sterling collapsed. "And for all the others." As sirens wailed in the distance, FBI agents summoned by Marcus's carefully timed anonymous tip. Nathaniel looked around at the 43 rescued children and felt something he hadn't experienced in 7 years. Hope. The aftermath was controlled chaos. FBI agents swarmed the facility, while medical teams triaged the rescued children. 3 required immediate hospital care, while others needed psychological evaluation before they could even begin to process what had happened to them. Nathaniel stayed with the children throughout the night, helping identify those who were coherent, enough to provide names or details about their families. The stories that emerged painted a picture of systematic evil that had operated under the protection of powerful people for over a decade. "We've arrested Judge Chen and Senator Hawthorne," Agent Sarah Williams told him as dawn broke over the Montana compound. "Dr. Westfield apparently fled the country yesterday. Someone tipped her off. How many more facilities like this? We're investigating. Based on the financial records you provided, there could be dozens across multiple states." The scope was overwhelming, but Nathaniel felt a grim satisfaction knowing they'd struck a major blow against the network. What about the children? What happens to them now? Family reunification where possible. Foster care for others. It's going to be a long process. That afternoon, Nathaniel returned home to find Emily and Emma waiting in the driveway. Emma was out of her wheelchair, standing on shaky legs with Dr. Martinez's support. "Daddy," Emily shouted, running toward him. The word hit him like a lightning bolt. In all the chaos of the rescue, all the planning and fighting, he hadn't realized they'd started calling him Daddy. "You saved them," Emma said, when he knelt down to hug them both. "Miss Jenny called and told us. You saved all the kids." "We saved them," he corrected. "Your courage in telling me about Uncle Mike, your memories about the facility, none of this would have been possible without you." Dr. Martinez approached with a warm smile. "Emma took her first steps this morning when she heard you were coming. Home psychological paralysis often breaks suddenly when the underlying trauma begins to heal. And Michael, federal custody. He'll likely serve time, but his cooperation will be considered. The children he helped rescue, that has to count for something." That evening, as Nathaniel tucked his daughters into bed, Emily asked the question he'd been dreading. "Are we really your daughters? Like really, really?" He took a deep breath. "Yes, you were stolen from me when you were babies. I thought you had died, but you were just lost. And now you're found." "What were our real names?" Emma asked quietly. "Sarah and—" He paused, realizing he'd never known about the twin. "What would you like your real name to be?" Emma thought for a moment. "I like Emma. It means whole or universal. Miss Jenny taught me that. And if Sarah was supposed to be Emily, then I want to be Emma, Sarah. So we both get to keep something." "Emily, Sarah, and Emma Sarah Brooks," Nathaniel said, testing the names. "I like that. And we get to stay here forever?" Emily asked. "Forever and always." As he turned off the lights, Emily's voice followed him into the hallway. "Daddy, asterisk, the other kids we rescued, do they all have daddies looking for them too?" "Most of them, yes." "Good. Because every kid should have a daddy who never gives up." 3 months later, 38 of the 43 rescued children had been reunited with their families. The remaining 5, who had been taken too young to remember their origins, were placed with carefully vetted adoptive families. The Children's Future Fund was dismantled, its assets liquidated to provide compensation for victims. Senator Hawthorne received 25 years in federal prison. Judge Chen died by suicide in his cell before trial. Michael served 18 months in minimum security prison and now runs a legitimate foundation helping families of missing children. But the most important change was in Nathaniel's mansion, which was no longer cold and empty. Emily's laughter echoed through the halls as she played piano. Emma's artwork covered the refrigerator. Family dinners replaced lonely nights in his office. Dr. Martinez became a permanent part of their lives, helping the girls work through their trauma while serving as the mother figure they'd never really had. One evening, as Nathaniel read bedtime stories to his daughters, Emma looked up at him with those hazel eyes that had haunted his dreams for years. "Daddy, do you think Mummy would be proud of us for being brave and helping save the other kids?" Nathaniel's throat tightened with emotion. "I think your mummy is watching over us every day, and I know she's proud of how strong and brave and kind you both are. Do you think she knows we're safe now? I think she's been waiting 7 years for this moment, for us to be a family again." As the girls drifted off to sleep, Nathaniel stood in their doorway watching them breathe. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, therapy sessions, legal proceedings, the ongoing work of healing from 7 years of trauma. But tonight, his daughters were home, safe and loved, and that was enough. 1 year later, Nathaniel stood before a congressional hearing on child trafficking, Emily and Emma beside him. They had insisted on testifying, despite the difficulty of reliving their experiences in front of cameras and strangers. The system failed these children for years, he told the packed committee room. Not just the criminals who stole them, but the officials who ignored reports, the agencies that didn't investigate, the powerful people who thought they were above the law. Representative Jane Morrison leaned forward. "Mr. Brooks, what changes?" do you believe would prevent situations like this from happening again? First, mandatory federal oversight of all private children's facilities. No more self-regulation. Second, automatic investigation of any child reported as deceased without a body being recovered. Third, protection for whistleblowers like Jennifer Walsh who risked their lives to report abuse. Emily stepped forward to the microphone. At 8 years old, she was poised beyond her years. The people who took us said our parents didn't want us anymore. But that was a lie. Every kid who gets taken, their family wants them back. Don't let the bad people tell you different. Emma's voice was softer, but equally determined. We want other kids to know that even when it's scary, even when the bad people say nobody's coming, somebody is always looking for you. Don't give up. The hearing led to the passage of the Sarah and Emma Brooks Child Protection Act, implementing every recommendation Nathaniel had made. More importantly, it created a national database linking missing children reports with suspicious child welfare cases. But the real victory was smaller and more personal. That same evening, Nathaniel's mansion hosted its first annual Freedom Day celebration. 41 of the rescued children attended with their families, along with Jennifer Walsh, who now ran a support program for trafficking survivors. The house was chaos in the best possible way. Children running through the halls, parents sharing stories of reunion and recovery, teenagers who had found their voices again, laughing with friends who understood their journey. Emily played piano for the group, her fingers dancing across keys with the same grace her mother had possessed. Emma painted portraits of the other children, capturing not their trauma but their resilience, their hope, their triumph. "Can you believe this?" Dr. Martinez asked, finding Nathaniel on the terrace overlooking the celebration. "Some days it still feels like a dream. 7 years of believing they were dead, and now you have not just your daughters back, but an entire extended family of survivors." Through the window, they watched Jake Morrison teaching a group of children basic self-defense moves, while their parents looked on approvingly. Marcus Chen was helping younger children with a puzzle, his usually serious face soft with unexpected paternal warmth. "There's something I need to tell you," Dr. Martinez said quietly. "Emma's been asking about having more brothers and sisters." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "She wants me to adopt more children." "No, she wants to know if you and I are going to give her biological siblings." The question hung in the air between them. Over the past year, Sarah Martinez had become much more than the girls' doctor. She was their confidant, their advocate, their chosen family. And somewhere along the way, Nathaniel had fallen in love with the woman who had helped heal his daughters' hearts. "What did you tell her?" "That adults need time to figure out important decisions." "And what do you think about giving them siblings?" Sarah smiled, the expression lighting up her entire face. "I think they've already given us the most important thing. They've shown us how to be a family again. Everything else is just details." Later that night, after the last guests had gone home and the girls were asleep, Nathaniel found himself in what used to be his lonely office. But now the walls were covered with family photos. Emily's first piano recital, Emma's art show at school, family vacations to places Rachel had always wanted to visit. On his desk sat a letter from a mother in Ohio, whose son had been found because of information uncovered during the Haven investigation. Next to it was a drawing Emma had made showing their family: Nathaniel, Sarah, Emily, Emma, and 2 stick figures labeled future baby brother and sister. His phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer Walsh. "Another facility raided in Texas tonight. 16 children rescued. The network is collapsing. Nathaniel, we're winning." He smiled and typed back, "We're not winning. We've already won. Everything else is just cleanup." As he turned off the lights and headed upstairs, he paused at the girl's bedroom door. Emily was curled up with a teddy bear that had belonged to her mother. Emma slept peacefully, her legs functioning perfectly now that the psychological trauma had healed. On their nightstand sat 2 framed photos, one of Rachel holding baby Sarah, and another of Nathaniel with his whole family at Christmas morning just weeks ago. "Thank you," he whispered to the photo of his wife. "Thank you for keeping them safe until I could find them." Somewhere in the distance, he could swear he heard Rachel's voice singing the lullaby that had brought his daughters home. "Hush now, my baby, be still, love. Don't cry, sleep as you're rocked by the stream. Hush now, my baby, the moon's in the sky. Rest now, my baby, and dream." The nightmare was over. The dream had just begun. For the first time in 8 years, Nathaniel Brooks went to sleep in a house full of love, surrounded by family, with no shadows of grief to haunt his dreams. His daughters were home, his heart was whole, and tomorrow would bring new adventures for a family that had found each other against impossible odds. Some fairy tales, it turned out, were true after all. The end.